5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Blast off! Woo! Good afternoon. I'm Reverend Jay Wolin, the settled minister here at the Unitarian Universalists of Sarasota. Thank you all for being here today. Unitarian Universalism is a faith tradition rooted in a commitment to justice, equity, and compassion. We're a covenantal community that draws wisdom from many sources, and our values declare that every person is inherently worthy and has the right to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion. That's written into our values and how we try to live out our religion in the world. I just want to say personally, I am an advocate for immigration because this country welcomed my grandparents into this country when they were fleeing persecution and poverty, and I would not be alive today if this country did not welcome them in. And just because they got here first doesn't mean that new immigrants should not be allowed into this country. And so, yeah. As well, I would add personally, both my children are immigrants to this country as well. And so this is one, I want to point out, this is one of the core values of our country, the United States. And the Declaration of Independence, one of its complaints against the king was that he did not allow immigration to the United States. Now, we can talk about, or we won't talk about how that impacted indigenous people here as well, but I would say as a country, the United States, and no king or no president should deny immigrants the right to be here. Thank you. I also want to say that immigration is justice is a central part to Unitarian Universalism because it speaks to who belongs. And we believe that no one is outside the circle of human concern. Everybody in, nobody out. Let me hear you say it. Everybody in? Everybody in? That's right. We recognize the courage of those who seek safety, opportunity, and a better life for themselves and their families. In the face of policies that dehumanize and divide, we are called to act with moral clarity and to advocate for systems that honor the dignity of every individual. So I want to thank you all for your presence here today. And thank you for your ongoing commitment to immigration justice, and I myself look forward to hearing today's speakers. So thank you. Give yourselves a round of applause for being here.
Thank you, Reverend. Good afternoon. My name is Juan Pablo Salas, and I am here in a personal capacity and as part of a group that organized this panel today, the Coalición por la Justicia Migratoria, Coalition for Immigrant Justice. At this point, I'm going to ask the present members of the coalition to please stand up and be recognized. Like you, we are a group of citizens and residents of this area who are concerned about the persecution of immigrant communities by those who want to use them as pawns in their political wars. We come from diverse backgrounds and walks of life, but we share one unwavering goal: to unite everyone in our community willing to stand up and defend the human rights of immigrants. Since certain politicians decided to scapegoat immigrants for society's problems, Thousands of peaceful, working families in our communities now live in constant fear, waiting for the moment that doors are broken down and masked agents take them and their children away to destination unknown. Will it be a detention center in Louisiana or a deportation to El Salvador, Libya, or Zimbabwe? History has repeatedly shown us that when one group is targeted for persecution, it marks a beginning of broader suppression throughout society. Today, discussions in the White House include proposals to eliminate one of democracy's foundational principles, habeas corpus. They seek the power to detain and deport people without due process. While they claim to target criminals, they effectively criminalize entire communities. We recognize this disturbing truth. Today's attacks on immigrants will inevitably expand to target anyone who challenges the regime, potentially marking the end of democratic governance as we know it. We are not a distant organization or political entity. We're simply concerned citizens of Sarasota and Manatee who refuse to remain silent about the future of our country and local communities. That's why we formed this coalition and organize events like today's panels. We commit to inform and raise awareness about the devastating consequences of this ominous mass deportation plan. We will collaborate to build a strong support network, providing assistance whenever and wherever possible. We will advocate before those in power for humane policy and changes. And we aim to establish a resource center offering direct support to affected communities. Today, our distinguished guest will help us understand the tremendous positive impact immigrant communities have on our society, from strengthening our economy to enriching our cultural fabric. We are deeply grateful for your presence today. Your attendance demonstrates your commitment and support for this vital cause. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to our panelists and Mr. Dale Anderson, who will be leading it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I was asked to moderate this session this afternoon. We have 3 speakers, and the way we're going to do this afternoon is I'm going to introduce the speakers. They're going to come up here and talk to you about their perspective on this, and we'll take questions after all 3 have a chance to speak. They will come up here to the table and take questions. So as you go through and listen to their presentations, take notes about questions you may want to have. So my job right now is to introduce the speakers. Our first speaker today is Jim Delgado. And Jim was born in El Paso, Texas. He graduated from J.M. Hanks High School. And after high school, he enlisted in the U.S. Air Force and was an inertial, is that the term? Inertial navigation system specialist on F-4 Wild Weasels. He graduated summa cum laude from the Inter-American University of Puerto Rico. He then graduated from Stetson College of Law and received a master's in business administration from Stetson. After law school, Mr. Delgado went to work as a public defender in Bradenton. While there, he gained valuable trial experience in criminal defense law in both misdemeanor and felony divisions. He's the past president of the Gulf Coast Latin Chamber of Commerce, past president of Manatee Educational Television, past president of Manatee Community Action Agency, past president of Step Up Suncoast, a former member of Illegal Aid of Minnesota, past member of the 12th Judicial Circuit Florida Bar Grievance Committee, and the current chair of the UPL Florida Bar Committee. He's a former attorney coach for St. Stephen's Episcopal School mock trial team, and he's also served as a judge in the teen court program at the Manatee County Courthouse. Mr. Delgado received the Manatee County Bar Association Community Service Award in 2007, received the Florida Trends Best Up and Coming Attorneys Award in 2008, received the Manatee County NAACP Business Award in 2015, and received the Manatee County Bar Association Lifetime Achievement in Community Service Award in 2018. Mr. Delgado is a practicing personal injury law attorney for over 25 years and is a partner at Shapiro Delgado. Please welcome Jim Delgado.
All right, good afternoon. It sounds impressive, but it's really not. I just kept a little busy. Probably why my kids don't want to be attorneys. I want to start off with one of my favorite quotes. I heard it, I don't know, I think it was around 2014, I believe, it was Barack Obama. And this partial quote stuck with me forever. Before we were us, we were them. Before we were us, we were them. And for some reason, that just stuck with me. You know, because we're always talking about them, right? It's the eternal story of mankind. It's always the hate of them. We're scared of them. It's always them, them, them. But I pose a question for you today. When has the hero of a story ever been those that were opposed to them? It's never been. They've never been the hero. The hero has always been you guys. Groups like this, people like this, and organizations that help for them. So who are them? They're not a group to be pitied. All right, I'm thankful you guys are here, but they're not a group to be pitied, and they're not a monolithic group. I have relatives and cousins who are anywhere from derelicts. Let's be honest, some of us are. Some of us are professionals, some of us are not professionals. We're farmers, we're dairy farmers, we're meat farmers, we're engineers, we're doctors, we're lawyers, we're firemen, we're police officers, we're military people, we're everything. So when they come over the border, those of them, they might be something else also. So you have to start thinking to yourself, what makes somebody leave the land of their ancestors, leave the comfort of their home, leave their families, their mothers, their fathers, their sisters, their brothers, their children, to go to a place that doesn't love them, that doesn't respect them, but they still go there. That's the type of people who them are. Them is all of us. Them was your grandparents, or your parents, or your great-grandparents. For me, it was my parents. I'm first generation. I was the first person on both sides of my family born in the United States by 5 minutes, El Paso, Texas. My dad is Puerto Rican, my mom's Mexican. Everybody in my family that's older than me either does not have papers or had a green card at one time. As a matter of fact, my cousins used to make fun of me. My Mexican side used to make fun of me because I used to complain and cry why I was so white. I was very blonde. My hair is gray, but I was very blonde as a child. Looked like a little German baby with my parents. And they used to make fun of me. They said, well, the reason you're so white is because you were born in the United States. And the sad part is, until I took a biology class much later on in life, I believed it. So I'm not sure I deserve all those awards I got. I think I kind of just walked into those. So I want to give you a little bit of history. God, I feel so tall up here with this step thing. All right, sorry. Can I? All right, thank you. Oh, much better. Sorry, I felt like I was going to fall over. A little history lesson on where we're at today, because there is a fear of being deported, but there's another fear in our community that I don't think we're talking about because it's not in the newspapers. But I can guarantee you every household, every mixed household, what I mean by mixed household is somebody that has an undocumented and a documented person, or every household that doesn't have, that's not a mix, just all undocumented. There's a fear that's running through the community that's bigger than just the immigration raids. It's the fact that they do not have a driver's license. So I want to go back and tell you the history of that. So after 9/11, or excuse me, before 9/11, in the state of Florida, and I think all the states, but the state of Florida, to get a driver's license, all you had to do is provide proof that you were a resident of whatever county you were in. That was it. Very few people did not have a license. If you didn't have a license, it's because you either chose, even if you came here yesterday, it's because you chose not to have one, or you lost it because you got a DUI and it was suspended, or you're just too lazy to get one. There was maybe, at that time I was a public defender, and maybe you'd get 5 to 10 cases a month, people didn't have a license. Fast forward after 9/11, our great commander-in-chief decided that we're going to change the rules on who can attain a driver's license. So it went from a list this long to a list with only 5 things on it. Guess who was excluded? Everybody who was undocumented was excluded from that list. When that list first came out, they said, not only can you not get a driver's license, but you cannot insure a car. So at that time, we had a lot of support. I was a little tiny activist back then, didn't know what I was doing, but I had a lot of friends in the Latino community, obviously. That was my family, it's my home. I had a lot of friends in the Latino community, a lot of business owners, a lot of landscapers, a lot of construction people, friends of mine. And they elected me their, it's called vocero in Spanish, their speaker, their mouthpiece, and go figure. So we put this big group together, and at that time, we had the help of the insurance lobbyists. Why? Because if they can't get a license, they can't insure that vehicle. They were up in arms. This must change, and I thought, well, if we have the insurance lobby, this is gonna be a piece of cake, right? Because after all, the person in charge of the driver's license is the governor of the state. We get a phone call. I get a phone call from one of the guys, says, hey, Jim, I just want to inform you that they're going to be able to get insurance. And at first I was like, oh, that's fantastic. And I was waiting for the other part, like also like they're going to make an exception. And I was like, and what about the driver's license part? He goes, oh, well, yeah, that's going to stick. So I said, so can I still count on you this Saturday? He said, no, I'm sorry to inform you, but you will no longer be leaving our help, our funds. Good luck, and hung up the phone on me. Last I ever spoken to that person. So basically, what the state of Florida after 2002 said was that you can buy a car, you can insure a car, you can register a car, you can pay here, buy here, but don't drive it. So that's where we started. So it's not like they don't have a driver's license, or it's not that they don't want a driver's license, they don't have it. So you're thinking, well, what does that have to do with today? Because it is not uncommon for a police officer when they are bored behind somebody. See, because they cannot stop you if they use race as an excuse to stop you. They cannot do that. But what they can do at the light is run your plate. I don't know what's going through their head. I can pretty much guess what's going through their head, but I can't prove it, and nobody will ever admit it. But they think, look at the driver. I wonder, let me run his tag. First thing comes up is the person, and guess what? The car's registered. It'll say, no valid driver's license. They can get pulled over. Now, there's a law that just changed July 1st. In the community, it's called La Ley de Julio Primero. That's it. It doesn't mention anything. It's just the July 1st law. What that means now in the state of Florida, that on your third conviction for no valid driver's license or driving on suspended license, automatic 10 days jail time. Automatic 10 days jail time, no exceptions. Here's the main problem. They've been getting arrested or stopped since 2002. I've got clients with 10, 11, 12. So what does that mean now? They automatically qualify for jail time. And the legislature in Florida also changed the law of the definition of what it takes to register a car. They changed the definition from identification to legal, or they changed the definition of identification, what it takes. So they can no longer register their car. So here's what they're doing. They're buying the car, somebody else's name is on it, somebody else is registering on it, they're the legal owner of the car over there. The guy who actually owns it is paying for the insurance. He's paying everything for that car, but he is no longer the registered owner. Now, I'm a personal injury attorney. This is what I do for a living. I sue people who are negligent. You know what kind of mess that is? And guess what? It's affecting every single one of you out there. This is the state of Florida, and these are the laws that nobody's talking about. So before we even get to the ICE raids and what's happening, the pain they're inflicting on communities, since July 1st, well, it took effect July 1st, but it didn't really hit home till January what was happening. Because it takes time for cases to wind through the court and for people to actually get in front of a judge and figure out what's going to happen. It's taken me 26 years to get my clients to come into my office and call me Jimmy, or Jim, or Delgado. It's taken me 26 years for them not to call me doctor, abogado, licenciado, señor, whatever. I am not into formalities. Matter of fact, this is dressier than I go to work. I've worked hard at my clients calling me Jimmy. I've been telling them for years, don't worry about it, it's fine, do the right thing. I feel like I betrayed them because everything I told them now has backfired on them. The ITIN number that I've been telling them for 26 years to get now is kind of like a tracking number for the IRS. Because guess who knows where they all are? IRS. I'll get that to it in a little bit. Sorry, see, today I'm trying to be a little more deliberate. If anybody's heard me talk, I'll just go and I'll speed up and I'll forget half of what I talked about and I'll just go off into another world. So I'm trying to be a little more deliberate today. So this is their day when they're going to go to work. Now remember, a lot of these people, the thems that we take advantage of, they get up before the light. So they're waking up in the morning, when they're getting their breakfast or their lunch, somebody's packing them their lunch, the kids. Here's what's going through their minds. The driver, whether they be the mother or the father, now more the mother, believe it or not. When she's getting ready, everybody else is thinking, will she be stopped today? Or is she going to be detained today? So not only are they thinking, hey, I got to pay the bills, I got this work, I got this thing, I got this house to finish, I got whatever job they have to do, it's also, if I get stopped, I might not make it home. I might not make it home. That's what they're thinking all day. Are they going to make it home from a job, from somebody who's paying taxes? Am I going to make it home? All the time. All the time. These are just regular people. Again, don't pity them. Business owners. Everybody I met 26 years ago when I first met them, when I was just a little peon, they were little peons. The majority of them now, all business owners, either they own their own land service, their own construction company, their own restaurant, their own car detailing, their own garage, whatever it is across the board, they are the owners now. Their children are now working. And the fear that they have every day, am I going to lose everything if I get stopped today? Am I going to lose everything? So I said something earlier about ITIN number. They pay taxes. 75% of them pay payroll tax. Nationwide, I know you heard this before. We've all heard it now. People are starting to talk about it more. Tax revenue right now in the nation is $96.7. The reason we all know that number is because that's a documented number. 96.7 right now, which goes into the no-match funds, by the way. Back in 2000, the last time I could find that information, the no-match funds, back in 2000, that number was over $800 billion. And I did check it with Joe Newman back then, and he said that that number was correct. Little call back to Joe Newman if everybody knows him. He's a great man. No-match funds, money they paid in. The state of Florida alone is $1.8 billion. That's the tax they generate. Want some bigger numbers? Nationwide, the purchasing power of an undocumented person ranges, the numbers they're not all over the place, but they're in between $255 million and $300 billion. $255 billion to $300 billion in spending power. Are you ready to lose that? If you deported 1 million people a year, it would cost $88 million to do that. Billion, sorry, to do that. The total price tag, I've looked at some studies, and they said if they could do it in 10 years, it would cost almost $1 trillion to deport everybody back. Almost $1 trillion. Where is that money coming from? Who's paying for that? Because it's not their tax dollars anymore. Remember COVID? Who was working in COVID? For every 1 million undocumented people, they generate $8.9 billion in tax revenue. I'm going to say that one more time. For every 1 million undocumented people, they generate $8.9 billion. You subtract a million, you lose $8.9 billion. In the agricultural field itself, 60% of them don't have papers. 60% of them don't have papers. It's a lot. 60%. Do you really think our kids are going to do that? My kids claim to be Latino. They're not doing it. I can tell you right now, they went to private school. I don't even think they're outside more than 5-10 minutes a day. It's too hot. In the taxi, construction, landscaping, all the other services, a quarter of them are undocumented. A quarter. So let's just think about this then. Let's back up a second. So let's assume we lose them. Okay, well, some people will kick in. That's never been successful, by the way. They tried that program, I think, back in 2008 or 2009, when Sensenbrenner, when they first started talking about the wall. It was take our job, whatever. People didn't come back. It was very unsuccessful. People are not going to do that work. So you have less food in the fields. You have less truckers doing delivery. If you have less truckers, you have less employees at the grocery store. If you have less employees at the grocery store, you have less money into that grocery store. Because I was talking with Tom and Jim back there, and my take on this, and I want to be proved wrong someday. I have a feeling that this is exactly who America might be. Look at it, look at the administration's numbers. The only thing he's not tanking on is immigration. We're seeing the brutality. I'm a numbers guy. I don't care about what's right and what's wrong. Well, that sounded bad. I do care. I do care. I guess better said is I'm not a fuzzy wuzzy. You know, my dad was a Vietnam veteran, 26 years, retired command sergeant major. My mom was a weapons dealer for the government, a little Mexican lady. She started off in the back. She started with the cash register, moved up to assistant. Before you know it, she was one of the top negotiators for the Department of Defense, negotiating an armament. Our swag at our house was military equipment, or like mugs that jets on them, and tanks and shells, you know. So I'm not a fuzzy wuzzy guy. I like to think that I'm quite the opposite. I'm pretty fact-based. The data drives me. The data drives my opinions. And what the data is telling me, this is exactly what America wants. At least half. I was corrected earlier. Juan Pablo corrected me. At least half. Why? Because we've been sold a bag of goods. We've conflated issues. We've conflated immigration and drugs. Immigration and fentanyl. Immigration and crime. They're completely separate issues. But there's just enough thread that interwines and makes it true. Guess who has filled the void in immigration in Mexico? The cartels. They always have. The cartel has always filled that void in immigration. Because I will make an argument that the system was working exactly as it's intended. Why? Because the way the system is, it's a lot of money for the United States. They don't get the benefits. They don't get it back. It just goes in there. Right? How is somebody undocumented going to negotiate better working conditions? How are they going to negotiate better terms? It's exactly as intended. It's exactly as intended. I hope to be proved wrong on that someday. I'm still a little cynical to this day. So if you don't believe the numbers, a lot of people say, well, Jimmy, I think you're looking at left-wing stuff on there. Okay. I think your numbers are skewed. It can't be true. None of those numbers are way too high, right? Because what they're being told is that they're getting between, I've heard numbers as high as $3,500 a month for free. I mean, we've all heard that, right? That they're getting money from us. It's a lie. There's only 2 places they can receive benefits from that I'm aware of. I'm not saying there's no, but there's only 2 places that I'm aware of, is the public education system and emergency rooms, right? And that's where they get, that's where the drag is. So let's look at it. Say, well, we don't believe the numbers. Let's look at this from a different viewpoint. Where do they buy their vehicles? Here. How about the clothes they're wearing? Here. How about the homes they own? And yes, a great percentage of them are homeowners. Where do they pay that mortgage? Our banks right here. If they're not homeowners and they pay rent, who's the rent go to? Right here. Their clothes, here. Entertainment, here. Their phones, here. Gasoline, here. Big gulps, here. Alcohol, here. Food, here. You name it, they're buying it here. So if you don't believe my numbers, do the math. Look at what's your monthly nut at your home. That's theirs too. If anyone in the audience, any of your friends own condominiums, own apartments, own Airbnb, whatever, imagine that tomorrow your tenants are gone. You think the bank's going to care? That's what we want to lose. These are people we want to lose. You want to lose somebody who left the country of their ancestors where they're comfortable, they spoke the language, they ate the food, to go somewhere that didn't want them because they wanted to work. They wanted to work. I'm 58 years old. The biggest problem me and my friends are having right now is keeping people employed. There's an argument going on among business owners right now. It's about Gen Z. I don't want to offend any Gen Zers. I'm just saying these are the conversations we are having. My kids are Gen Z. I'm impressed with my children. I think I might be in the minority, though, compared to what people are telling me. I don't want to believe it, though. I keep hearing we can't keep them employed. They're not willing to work from the bottom. They're too sensitive. They're too this, they're too that, they're too this, too that. I also keep hearing that we're having children at a lower rate, right? They're complaining that we're not going to, why? Because we need to kick into Social Security, right? The young have to pay for the old. That's a way of life. So I'm thinking, hold on a second. They're complaining that there's not enough people to work. We're not having babies fast enough. I'm yelling over here, hold on, I have it. They're here already. Juan, Paco, Isabela, they're here. We don't have to tell people to keep making babies. We have them already. As a matter of fact, we don't even have to wait 18 years before we can start taxing them. We can start taxing them yesterday. You work at Walmart, you can't find 6 extra employees who's going to work 12-hour days. Guess what? I have 10 of them right now. And when those 10 are gone, I got another 10 to take their place. The solution is already here. Immigration is not a real problem for you and me. For us, it's not a problem. It's a benefit. For them, it's a problem. A lot of these right-wing people, they like to quote the study from Harvard that was done many years ago, where they're talking about how undocumented people unfairly compete and suppress wages with people who are legally here. They did not finish reading that freaking study. Because its conclusion was, the one who competes undocumented competes with undocumented. They're the loser here. The loser in this whole game is the undocumented person. They are the loser in every scenario. The winner is us. We benefit. I remember after hurricane, I was one of the unfortunate few who, well, put it this way, that's the last night we spent in that house. Okay? Bob, how you doing? My neighbor over there. Guess who was doing cleanup? All around. Was it my children? Guess who was working? Was it my children? Was it your children? Don't lie, it was not. They might have been the other company, but they were not doing the work. I'm getting a house built now, or hopefully soon. Sorry, Bob, you have an eyesore there. You have to look at that lot. Who's going to do the work? So when you start thinking how it affects you, this does affect you. Oh, this affects everything about you. We are all interconnected. Grocery stores are going to be affected. Furniture places are going to be affected. Kitchen places are going to be affected. Renovations are going to be affected. Remember, if there's less money circulated, if there's less money being circulated in your community, you're going to lose. We are all going to lose. You take that in conjunction with terrorists that are about to hit us. What was that, Jim? You said 6 weeks? What are we going to look like? We have to start thinking. Like I said again, they don't want to be pitied. To sort of quote Ginsburg, just get your foot off my neck. That's all we want. We just want to live. We want to work. We want to buy stuff. We want to mindlessly scroll. Whatever you think you want, we want to. Quick bit of knowledge. In 26 years, my clients have been coming to my office, talking about my Hispanic clients, mostly from the ones that are from Mexico, Honduras, El Salvador. In 26 years, I'm sure they exist. I have never in 26 years had a client that didn't have a job. 26 years. Again, I'm sure they exist. They have to. They're human beings. That's who we're picking on. That's who the target is. They come into my office shaking, crying. I've got one guy who's got 3 or 4 taco trucks, 3 duplexes, and he manages something else. They want 10 days for him. I have a mother who's got 3 children, 1 special needs. She can't stop driving. They want 10 days for her. I've got another lady who has her own cleaning business. So what is her day? Going back and forth. They want 10 days for her. I got another person who they've been trying to get their immigration paperwork for, 6, 7 years. They want 10 days for her. And there's nothing I could do. Because DeSantis said mandatory 10 days jail time. They could have put exceptions in there. They could have said house arrest. They could have said house arrest. They could have said work offender. It was very plain and simple. They must do 10 days jail time. That's more punishment than other crimes, people. It used to be, no valid driver's license used to be a second-degree misdemeanor, and here's what was happening in Manatee and Sarasota County, and we were all part of this. They would come in, they'd pay the court costs, $300, a fine, $150, $250, walk out that door, and guess when they paid? They paid that day. And the court was churning it out. Remember earlier I said between 3 and 5 a month before 2002? In the heat of this, 50 people per week. All pleading out, all paying their court costs. Just money going into the coffers. That's all they've done in this country, is work and put money into our pockets. Work and put money into our pockets. And how do we pay them? How do we repay them? We don't allow them to register their cars. They cannot have a driver's license. They can buy our cars. They can insure our cars, but they cannot drive to work. And if you do, you're a criminal. Because guess what? A friend of mine the other day called me and said, hey, my housekeeper got arrested or got stopped. Can you help her out? I said, sure. I called her back up. I said, oh, by the way, it's going to be 10 days jail time. She goes, oh, how can that be? She's not a criminal. Oh, by the way, this friend of mine, Trumper. I said, I almost mentioned her name. I told her, I told you. She goes, no. He said he was going to do criminals and rapists. I said, hey, slow down. First of all, you believed him. Mistake on you. I go, and second, that word criminal. They're a criminal. Oh, no, they're not. I said, hold on a second. A jaywalker's a criminal. Driving on no valid light is a criminal. See, in our minds, we think criminals are like television. We think criminals are these masterminds, these geniuses, they're rapists, murderers. No, technically they're criminals. They drove without a license. Some of them had a license, but it was suspended from. So technically, they're a criminal. So again, I ask you, and I just want you to remember, before we were us, we were them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is James Martin. James was born and raised in Iowa. He has had a passion for exploring the world, and at age 17, he participated in a summer exchange program in Israel, sparking a lifelong interest in international cultures and global experience. While studying at the University of Iowa, James spent a transformative year abroad at a university in France. It was there that he met his future wife, Marie, a French citizen whose immigration journey to the United States would later inspire his career as an immigration lawyer. He's an expert in immigration law, having practiced in this specialty for over 30 years. His office is here in Sarasota. He's fluent in both English and Spanish. He's a humble person. He didn't give me much of a bio, so I went to his website. It reveals that he's an expert in guiding clients through the visa process, E2, H1B, F1, and more, for work, study, business, and investments. His office works with green card applicants in navigating their family through work and through the extraordinary talent green card application process. And finally, James and his staff provide immigration defense, legal support for appeals, deportation waivers, and asylum to protect his clients in their journey here in the United States. And on his site, he has one person who wrote, we've known James Martin for a long time now. At the very beginning of our family's immigration journey, and every step of the way, both James and the entire supporting team have been nothing but the best. They're a dedicated, caring, and extremely knowledgeable team. We are so very lucky to have been in their hands for this process. So please welcome James Martin.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me here. I do have to say that Jim Delgado is a really hard act to follow, so I'll try to enlighten you a little bit on the state of the law, what's going on in the immigration practice, and give you some of my thoughts on as to why and what we can do about it. In the back, we had a discussion as to what's going on in the United States, and Jim stated he fears that that's what the United States has become, what we're witnessing right now. I fear that too, but I want to think better of my fellow countrymen. And let's put this into context just a little bit. I was born in '63, 3 weeks after Kennedy was shot. The Vietnam War starts. We go through Watergate. Watergate was actually something very positive because we had Republicans that turned on their president and they helped to get him out of office. But things kept going on, and the country got richer and richer, and people got more and more complacent. This is the way I see it. And the Democrats that I knew became New Democrats. And we can look back fondly even of the Reagan era in the sense that he spoke very compassionately about immigrants.
there was a social contract that existed, even with very conservative Republicans, that we have a certain level of decency. But then our politicians decided that we weren't making enough money, and they sent jobs abroad. They sent them to China, they sent them to Mexico. And I think most Americans are very magnanimous, and they would say, great, you're sending these jobs to Mexico. Now they can get the TVs and the dishwashers and all this stuff. But I've lived on the US-Mexico border, and I thought that if you cross the border into Mexico, I can get cheap groceries. You can't. When I was living in Del Rio, Texas, and I lived there for about 8 months, I crossed over the border and went to a major supermarket, and I'm like, wow, the prices are the same or higher here. And the Walmart in the United States had cheaper goods than were in Mexico. Yet those people in Mexico, the Mexicans, made, if they were lucky, 10% a year or 5% a year of what I made in the United States. And so you can imagine the pressure. And the free trade agreements didn't really raise their standard of living. What the free trade agreements did, you can look at the charts. Free trade agreement, jobs going overseas, and immigration just skyrocketing. And why is that? Because our politicians put us through a social experiment unlike any we've ever seen before. And basically, for example, Mexico was a rural country, and so campesinos, there are a lot of people working on the ranches, and all of a sudden, all these American products get dumped into the Mexican market, and these people don't have jobs. And the promise of industrialization of Mexico did not occur, and they headed north, and they came to the United States. And the message that was sent to these people was that if we catch you coming through the border, we're going to send you back and deport you. But if you get through, we're going to give you a job. And that's exactly what has happened into this country. And this fantails into what Jimmy says. We have taken advantage of these people because this is, follow the money, follow the money. If the people do not have the ability to negotiate better wages, then they're going to take the lower paying jobs and they're not going to speak up for workers' rights. And that's exactly what has happened here. And this has favored big business, and it was all kept very quiet. Many of us pride ourselves on being Democrats, but I'm sorry to tell you, the Democratic Party was complicitous in this, and we have to face it as a society. And so now we have a mess, because now we have gutted the middle class. You go to places like Ohio, Indiana, and places that were thriving communities, and this isn't the immigrants' fault, this is the politicians' fault. These jobs have left, and you've got a whole lot of white middle-class people who used to be able to pay a mortgage and send their kids to college on a high school education or a bachelor's degree, and that no longer exists. And then you add in all of the changes that have taken place. Social media, politicians who are really demagogues, and propaganda for many years. I was working in New York City until 2004, and then I landed in Del Rio, Texas, and I got home to watch CNN, and every freaking night, Lou Dobbs was on there screaming about immigrants. By the way, he's married to a Mexican. And the people have been hit with this and hit with this. And so the only thing I'm going to say is it's an easy target to hit the Trump supporters. But if everything has been kicked out from under you, and some politician comes along and promises Shangri-La, and you're not particularly, let's just say, politically attuned, because I don't want to say these people are stupid. They've been dealing with really difficult circumstances. You're going to fall for it. And we've had this in history before, where we've seen countries that are very civilized and very advanced, mainly the 1930s, become really bad places to live. So I think our mission has to be, is it's not us versus them, like we good, they bad, but we have to take the mission to humanizing our clients and showing them. One of the showing the people what is really going on. I have had discussions with people about Jewish people about Israel-Palestine. For Jewish people, that war over there is a war for existence. I mean, for many Jewish people, even here, for many Palestinians, it's a live-die proposition. Understand that we're receiving different messages based upon the algorithms, the channels we watch, and everything, and we talk past each other. So our mission is to make this thing really real for people. Jimmy and I, we watch the videos with people being picked up. A lot of these Trump supporters are not seeing that. It's just not getting across their radar. And our job has to be to bring the mission, to bring the information to the people. And I think it's going to hit home really, really hard because at some point you just can't hide it. And so, having said that, I'd like to just give you kind of an overview of what is happening in immigration. And I'm going to preface it with the following, okay? What I am telling you may not be valid 5 minutes from now. Because we did elect a despot in this country. I'm very realistic about that. And he has the agenda of hitting us really hard and keep it moving. So I am looking over here and trying to deal with this mess that he has created, and he's 5 messes ahead of me. And so I have a hard time keeping up with everything, and it's coming across my desk, and people are calling, and so-and-so is detained, what are you gonna do about it? And so this is very, very difficult. But let's talk a little bit about what we're seeing. The first thing that I'd like to talk to you about is DACA, so the Dreamers. It still is in existence. For how long? I don't know. Trump got his wings clipped a little bit by the Supreme Court a few years back in his first term, and for some reason, he's leaving DACA alone for now. We may walk out of here this afternoon and say we might find out that he's getting rid of it. That's how crazy things are. But I am still extending people on DACA. The other thing is we have something called temporary protected status. This is for Salvadorans, Hondurans, Ukrainians. These programs are people who have arrived at a certain time before a certain date, and they give them a work authorization and a type of pseudo status. These programs are very much in danger. Trump has already tried to eliminate one of the programs for the Venezuelans. The courts have stopped him for now, but we just don't know what's going to happen with these programs. Don't know. I'll find out when it happens. That's kind of the way the news cycle works. And a lot of times, this is really embarrassing, but clients will tell me what happened because they're getting in, they're on Reddit, they're on everything, and they get the news sometimes even faster than the bar does, believe it or not. Because if you're trying to sit and bail a client out, you're not sitting on the internet all day watching for the last development. It's just the facts of the case, the facts of our everyday life. But there are things that are going on that are highly, highly, highly disconcerting, okay? And what I mean by that is there are laws that have been promulgated that fly right in the face of due process, things that we have taken for granted our entire life. And I cannot overstate the gravity of the situation. Example 1, Laken-Riley Act. Anybody ever heard of it? Okay. So basically, if you are a foreign national and you do something as simple as shoplift and you're in jail and ICE picks you up, you are mandatory detention until your case is settled at the immigration courts. Now, I don't know how many of us shop at Walmart, but Walmart loves to pick people up for shoplifting when they're not really shoplifting. They have these automated cashiers, which I love to do because I don't want to wait for anybody. So I go through, but I also make damn sure that I scanned every frickin' item on there because they're watching, and they specialize in getting people for shopping while Mexican. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, these are my clients, they come through. They may have inadvertently skipped an item, or there's a problem with the scanner, and they'll pull them aside, and that's a shoplifting offense. Well, guess what? This person stands a really good chance of ending up in an immigration detention facility, and it's not a beautiful thing. You get detained in Florida, and then it gets to be something like, find Waldo. Oh, they moved Waldo to Arizona. They move them around the country because it's all a system to try and keep chaos going so that the people cannot get the representation that they need, et cetera, et cetera. So simple offenses can land people in trouble with immigration. Fantail that to what Jimmy just said, that if you have how many offenses? 3? 3 offenses, driving without a license, 10 days in jail. Why is that? Because they are using the laws to basically make it easy for the government to have a dragnet. Love your cell phone? It's a tracking device, okay? And the thing that really scares the living crap out of me is that they're experimenting with these people. This can be turned on us very easily. This is a dry run for worse things to come in the future. So you need to mobilize and oppose it. Let me go on. There were a slew of executive orders. It's really hard for me to keep track of this. So I went through this morning. They've got protecting the American people against invasion executive order, which took some of Biden's enforcement priorities and turned them on their heads. So basically, anybody who is encountered by immigration, you're fair game. I tend to vote progressive, maybe the Bernie Sanders type progressive. Biden wasn't my favorite guy, I will tell you that right now. I think he sucked on Palestine, but I will tell you he was 1,000 times better than this guy, and that's obvious. But it was much easier when Biden was president because he just wasn't, I'm sorry, I'm going to put it this way, he wasn't a malicious shit when it came to immigration. And this is what we're dealing with. So Biden, you could deal with the government, and the rule of reason was what was governing at least the enforcement priorities in immigration. Because you want to know something? When you round all these people up, when you round them all up, you get the guy off of the street on his bike, and he's working in a restaurant or he's working in the fields, you tend to lump everybody together, and then you can't really find the criminal ones. I know one of the slogans here was everybody in, nobody out. I'm a little bit more conservative than that. You come here to kill somebody, you're out. I mean, we're all reasonable people. We're not bleeding heart liberals. We want common sense immigration laws. You come here to commit a crime, you need to be removed from the country. But what happens is that when you group them all together, you may have someone who was selling cocaine on the corner and who was probably a dangerous person, grouped in with the guy who was just here unlawfully, and it may take a long time to get them through the court. But Trump seems to think that he has a way of solving that problem, and that's just basically throw due process out the window and just get rid of everybody. One of the high profile cases has been Abrego Garcia, who was a man from Honduras and received something called withholding of removal. Let me give you a little bit of background on withholding of removal. When you come into the country, you have 1 year to apply for asylum unless there are extenuating circumstances. Abrego Garcia got picked up. It was more than a year, so they gave him withholding of removal. So what happens in the court is the judge orders you removed, right? And then the judge signs an order saying the government cannot remove you because ostensibly you qualify for political asylum. Well, we all know the story of Abrego Garcia, that he was picked up and he was sent to El Salvador. And the Supreme Court has said in a way that was not strong enough that the Trump administration need to make every effort to bring him back, and the Trump administration has not done so, and now they're shifting the blame to Bukele and El Salvador, et cetera, et cetera. This is really serious stuff. When you have an administration that is flouting the Supreme Court, none of us are safe. And this must scare the living daylights out of every one of us. But it gets better. Jimmy will probably remember, I think I ran into Jimmy the first time around 2005, 2006. There were Arizona laws. There was an Arizona law that was basically taking over what the federal government was doing in terms of immigration enforcement. And so the argument was that the states cannot intrude into federal territory. It's called federal preemption. That concept is being tested, tried, and stretched by the Florida laws. The Florida laws that now make it illegal for an undocumented alien to come into the state of Florida. And we haven't really, and these laws have also kind of gotten into the field of employment enforcement. For example, companies of a certain size have to participate in E-Verify. There are penalties for employing unlawful immigrants. For example, professional life. If I have an undocumented immigrant working in my firm, it's illegal, we know that. Normally, these are civil penalties under the federal statute, unless it's a pattern or practice. Well, Florida has won up to the government, and they can take my professional license away. They're doing everything they can to tighten down against every possible way an immigrant can feel that they have a way of working in this country, and they're trying to deputize us into immigration enforcement. And they want us to call in, they want us to turn in our neighbors, they want to make us into a vigilante society, and we won't have anything to do with it. We cannot, because we will be betraying our founding principles if we do that. We have just begun to see there's a bill that has deputized local law enforcement into immigration enforcement. This is scary stuff, because you know what? Half the time when an immigrant comes through my door, I have to sit down with them for 15 or 20 minutes to figure out where they stand in front of the law, okay? Because I don't know, I have to get all the facts. They are asking police officers to make a snap decision. And if you think that driving while Mexican was a problem before, now we have it on steroids, because anybody who looks slightly different from me is going to end up being detained, at least for a short amount of time. And it could be a long amount of time until they sort things out, as we saw happened here in the state of Florida with a U.S. citizen. So these are the danger signs that we are seeing. One of the executive orders that Der Fuhrer propagated was against birthright citizenship. So he believes that he can get rid of the 14th Amendment with an executive order. If you had asked me this 10 or 15 years ago, I'd say you're batshit crazy and it's not going to happen. I'm not saying that anymore. There are a lot of Trump appointees on the Supreme Court, and we just don't know where they stand. We can hope that they will help preserve our rights, but I am not 100% sure that they'll do that anymore. And so there are what I would call bellwether cases that you guys need to keep your eyes on, because Trump has already flouted the Abrego Garcia decision. But if it continues and the courts are disregarded, it's going to be pretty close to game over, and then the people will have to take the power back. And I'm not talking about some violent revolution. I'm not for violence, but we can sit here and we can talk all day long about how bad this is and wring our hands. But even under the Biden administration, and I'm getting political here and I don't mean to offend anybody, I understood that protests, simple protests, getting out there and making your voice heard may not be enough when it came to Israel-Palestine. Well, Biden was a pretty nice guy compared to this guy. And so now what you're looking at is you're looking at a dictator wannabe. That's all he is. He's a dictator wannabe. And mine's much greater than mine. I am not a political person. I really am not, because I don't have the personality traits. But mine's much greater than mine are saying, maybe you're going to have to shut down the system with general strikes. Town halls are really great, but just look around this room. I'm preaching to the choir. I can say mean things about Trump and I get a rise, yeah. But the thing is, this is just getting really, really serious. And if we don't draw the line here, we don't know how far this is going to go. There have been discussions of erecting out in the desert detention camps. Detention camps with freaking tents. Where have you ever heard of this in our history? Oh, maybe the Japanese in World War II. Okay? It's repeating itself. It's happening again, and it's happening right before our very eyes. I want what's good for this country. I don't want to have to leave this country. I've traveled to Mexico twice in the last 6 months just to see what real estate prices are. But I don't want to leave the fight, and I won't leave the fight. But this is really, really scary stuff that we are confronting. We have to take the message to the people, and I want the success of our country, but I can only hope that Trump shot himself in the foot with the tariffs. I really hope so. I hope we hit people in the pocketbook hard enough that they see that this guy is for the birds. Because it doesn't seem like this issue is sexy enough for people to move forward. Because, I don't know, I'm in a UU church, all right? UU people tend to be pretty educated. Anybody ever read Moral Man and Immoral Society? Anybody ever heard of that book? So the premise of the book is people are generally good. Remember what I said at the beginning about all the Trumpies? A lot of them are actually, they have some problems, but if you talk to them one-on-one, many of them just have the same concerns that we have, but they're seriously deluded. And the reason is because society is compartmentalized and we're not communicating with each other. So what we need to do is bring the message to the people. Maybe the economy will do that. But we are in deep, deep trouble. I don't know what's going to happen in Florida. Jimmy has talked about the economy. What's going to happen? I know that my Mexican, my Hispanic clients, they're going to states like New York, Illinois, places like that. What's going to happen to places like Florida where, you know, time's on my side. I'm 60, so we're all getting older. And you need the younger population to provide the services. That's just Machiavellian. That's just self-interest. That's not even being compassionate. That's just saying we need these people. And that message has to be brought to the people. You know, we have a lot of people here who are very sympathetic to immigrants, and it's a great thing. Just be ready, the fight is on. I want to bring to you just a really famous passage, to me anyway, and I look at your, what would you call that, a pole? I don't know, it has different religious symbols. And that's one of the cool things about the UU, is that you are open to everybody and you want to protect the rights of everybody. And I would just give you a passage from the Holy Quran, which is, you have a Muslim symbol there. It says, "O mankind, indeed we have created you male and female and made you peoples and tribes that you may know one another. Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of God is the most righteous of you. Indeed, God is all-knowing and acquainted with you." We are in the fight for our lives, folks. Please, please engage the fight. Continue the fight. Do not give up. Do the right thing. Respect even your political enemies. Try to win them over with your kindness. And let's win this fight.
Thank you so much. So our final speaker this afternoon is Tom Edwards. Tom is well known to our UU congregation. He's been here speaking on issues around the Sarasota school board systems in the past. He's a dedicated advocate for academic excellence and student welfare, elected to the Sarasota County Board in August of 2020. Tom was handily re-elected to the board in August of 2025. Yes. Throughout his tenure, Tom has consistently prioritized the needs of students, ensuring their educational experience remains at the forefront of decision-making processes. In September of 2025, he was named the Executive Director of SRQ Strong. Understanding that trauma is a public health issue that has impacted students and community members alike, Tom jumped at the chance to be SRQ's first Executive Director, leading the way for this grassroots community organization and its focus on healing and resiliency. His entrepreneurial skills have also demonstrated community-wide trauma awareness. Tom's vision for his leadership role is to have a community that leads with empathy instead of judgment or division. With over 40 years of entrepreneurial experience as the co-founder and owner of 2 thriving businesses in New York, Tom brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to his role. His entrepreneurial background is complemented by 11 years of advocacy for small businesses at the state legislative level within the New York State General Assembly, demonstrating his commitment to serving communities and fostering economic growth. He is an avid master rower, rowing 50,000 meters weekly, often competing around the country and locally at Nathan Benderson Park. His love has compelled him to be the co-founder of the Newtown Rowing Initiative, NRI, as it's referred to in a partnership with Sarasota Crew, brings the sport of rowing to over 20 Title I students annually throughout scholarships and community donations. Currently, he's finalizing agreements with the city of Northport to bring rowing to South County. The partnership with the Sarasota Scullers and the city of Northport will offer the sport to over 4,000 public students. Additionally, he serves as a board member for the Sarasota Scullers. Tom has exemplified unwavering dedication to advancing educational opportunities and empowering students to reach their full potential. He's a respected leader with the Sarasota County School Board and Sarasota County at large. He continues to make meaningful contributions to our educational system as well as the broader community. Please welcome Tom to the podium. Thanks.
How many were at the event earlier today? Great, good to see you again. I'm going to try and I love our speakers today because our individual perspectives, I think I'm going to wrap it all up and try to put it into a big bow. I'm going to go back to the Reagan era, and at that time I was in my 20s, and I was a founding member of the Gay Men's Health Crisis. I had the opportunity of meeting Dr. Fauci just a few weeks ago, and at the time, Dr. Fauci would send us information every single day about the virus, and that information was disseminated to the bars in New York City. I myself am HIV negative, and I know we saved a lot of lives, although we lost so many friends and family members at that time. But I want you to remember also that Reagan never said the word AIDS, never. And in juxtaposition of that time period, I would also like you to remember that that was the era by which the unions were busted and offshoring, all the manufacturing left the country. So I need you to put into context what that looked like. And at that particular moment in time, I grew up in the Midwest. I'm from the Steel Belt. And I want to tell you that neither party rescued those folks who lost their pensions and lost their jobs. Those people were left to dangle on their own. Fast forward 40 years to where we are today, those are MAGA. Those are MAGA. They're the ones that are so angry and so disenfranchised, and we now have their children. So we have two generations of folks that were left behind by a system, and we can sit here all day long and blame Republicans and go back and forth. I'm tired of that argument, personally. So when you have an argument that comes full circle, and I just want to go back 1 second to the 80s. Right at that moment in time when I was paying attention to the AIDS crisis, I read an article then. So think about what this was like from the 60s to the 80s, and that's where I grew up. The article said, and this was unfortunately generated by the Republican Party, we are in for a long game. Let me tell you what that game looks like. We just have had protests on the Vietnam War. We've had women's rights protests. We've had civil rights protests. We've had all of these protests that happened in the 60s and 70s that changed the course of America. It was powerful. It was a powerful time, and it had to do with activism and protest. In that article, they said, we're never going to put up with that again. We made our population too smart. And so if you think about what public education looked like in the 50s and 60s, we were competing in the Cold War. I was that student. We had every dollar, we had every teacher, we had everything, anything we needed in public education was there. And as soon as that activism period of the 60s and 70s were over, they ratcheted it all back because they wanted to dumb down the population. That was the article I read. So now just keep progressing, just keep looking at this. Here's the cute thing I've learned about politicians. I'm not one. I took it as a public servant. I was bored as retired. That's how I got into school board. It was pre-Moms for Liberty, and then all that happened as soon as I got there. But here's what politicians will do. They'll look at something, and if they can get away with it, then it becomes, it's okay. It's permission to keep doing it. If I didn't get caught and no one's upset about it, then I can keep doing it. So now, if we've dumbed down the population, and now we're into, hey, I love the comment about this was economically great at the time. I'm positive Reagan was in on that conversation because, hey, we'll just keep it quiet, we'll all make plenty of money, and we'll just keep plugging along. Well, guess what? Now they're thinking, well, maybe we could take back the whole country and we, the wealthy, can just run it. It'll be ours. So guess what they're going to do with your kids and your grandkids? They're going to keep dumbing it down. They're going to get rid of the immigrants, and they're going to force the population to be workers so that the wealthy run the country. And I'm telling you, that is where we're headed. That is all of the conversations, and I'm trying to clip it into a nutshell to condense everything that we heard here today, because I'll tell you what I've seen. And I can't live in a world without hope. I just can't. So when I got to school board, like I said, I ran very innocently, saying I'm an entrepreneur, I have a good business background, I'm going to sit on the school board as a business person, not an academic, and I'll be fresh eyes. That's what I thought. The second I got there, that's when Moms for Liberty went bonkos, and the vote was 4-1. I was the odd man out. And so all I did was rise to the occasion and just defend our teachers, defend our students, defend the marginalized, and just hold my ground. Well, think about what it was like in 2020. No one was talking about school board. No one was paying attention to it. And so here's the good news. Here's what I want you to really pay attention to. The good news is that every single time Moms for Liberty on my board, on that school board, did something wackadoo, another 5,000 people in Sarasota woke up. They read the newspaper, they heard it. Every single solitary time, because no one was paying attention to school board. I was sitting there for months saying, hello, there's a political movement, it's called Moms for Liberty, no one was listening. But over time, people began to pay attention because we, the royal we don't like being run by extremists. That's not who we are. And when I ran for public office this past time, I told all of you, I'm not a right or a left. All of us are right down the middle. Both of us, we are between both 40-yard lines. Some of us are a little to the left of the 50, some of us are a little to the right of the 50, but most of us are right down the middle. And we've allowed the extremists on both parties to dominate the conversation, and we've squelched the middle. The middle will not engage in an argument. That's not their style. So let the extremists have the fights. So fast forward again. I want to tell you that I didn't make the change other than I held my ground. I was a moderate. I stood right in the middle, and I held my ground. And the Sarasota voters, over those 4 years of extremists running the policies, came in, reelected me by 58%, which is unheard of. The one extremist that they could get rid of on the school board, they did, and they brought in Liz Barker. They did the same exact thing at the hospital board, and they did the same thing with Tom Knight at the county commission. Every chance that Sarasota had a chance to move us back into the middle, they did. So here's the good news. Everything that Trump is doing, and you're 100% right, he's 5 messes down the road. We all saw this coming. Those of us that were paying attention we all knew it was going to be here. We only had 63% turnout of the electorate in the 2024 election. Here's why. When you yell at Republicans and say, how could you vote for that guy, or this mess we're in is, you're yelling at them, and they're not going to come into your big tent. They're not going to come in and say, how do we become a coalition and fight back on extremism? That's the change we all have to make. That's the change that Sarasota led. That's the change I'd like to say I was part of the conversation to say that's not who we are. And how do we invite people into our tent? How do we get them to understand? And believe me, There are plenty of left-leaning Republicans and independents that are just as afraid as we were told we need to be. They are just as concerned. And if we vilify them by a wide swath of calling them Republicans, how could you do that? We have to find a way to bring them into our tent. And that's what happened in that town hall today. That message for that town hall today was to tell you, get out there and have conversations with your shared common values. We do not like that this president is defying the Supreme Court. That is horrendous. How could anybody tolerate that, regardless of your party? That's a great shared common value to have a conversation. And even if they start going into the immigration conversation and say, well, these people are here illegally, hey, let me just tell you, we're a country of the rule of law. That would be my answer. That is what we do. And if somebody is here illegally, then we would address that, no different than a president defying the Supreme Court. That is unconstitutional. So aren't we on the same page? Aren't we there together trying to solve this problem? And the better terminology is not Republican or Democrat. Take those out of your language, get it out of there right now. These people running our country are extremists. That is not who we are. So that is how I did it on the school board. I never called them Republicans. I didn't even often use the term Moms for Liberty. I called them extremists, and I labeled them. That is extreme, and that is not who we are. And that's the call to action here today. I'm anxious to get to the panel. That's why I know you all have a lot of questions, particularly about the protection of our kids, so I want to get to the Q&A as quickly as I can. But I needed to point out to you that this was a very deliberate long-term plan that happened from the 80s on because they saw the power of protest. They saw the power of public education. And they wanted to dumb it all down. And each step along the way, now that they can get to the place where they're saying, hey, we the oligarchs, we the wealthy could actually run this country, and we never have to deal with that again. We don't even have to deal with immigrants. We'll just keep the kids doing it. We'll get the young to do it. We'll find a way to get them to be in our employ, and the American dream will go away. And that's what we're here to protect. So I will see you at the panel.
Thank you all. And our speakers, you want to come up and please take a seat at the desk here. We have 2 microphones and 2 runners. So, Maria, are you one of the runners with microphone? I am the runner, yes. Okay, so you're going to get everybody. And then Sandra Baker?
Here.
So Sandra has a microphone. She's in the back. And Maria's going to take her picture and then grab a microphone. And so, Sandra, if you want to come up, there's some questions. If you want to raise your hand, Sandra will get you a mic. So we have a question over here.
Okay.
And you want to just stand up when you speak there, it'd be helpful.
I need to hold it. So good. I feel like never again is now. I think it is shocking, frightening, these 287G agreements with our police departments. To me, it's the new Gestapo. We just had Operation Tidal Wave here in Florida, where they tested it out, rounded up 800 people without rule of law, without due process. And as a Jew, I don't think we're far removed from what they did to my ancestors. They're talking about suspending habeas corpus, that they would like to do that. So I'm glad Tom mentioned the 80s, because, and Reagan busting the unions. I happened to be on strike then, Philadelphia Federation of Teachers. We were supporting PATCO's picket line, they were supporting ours. We won, they lost, because we actually threatened a general strike. We were the largest chapter of the AFL-CIO in Philadelphia, Central Labor Council. We had been in court for months and got nowhere, but it was the threat of a general strike by all the city workers that all of a sudden the courts decided we were right, we got our jobs back. Right now, our judiciary is somewhat operating in a vacuum. I think we are going to need the force of labor unions, of protesters, from nonpartisan groups, from everybody. I think that's really what it's going to take for them to see that these rules have to be enforced. The law of the land has to be enforced, but it's not going to happen in a vacuum. The judiciary, Trump's ignoring it. And it's only going to be by mass action, I think. What do you think about having, I'm supposed to have a question here. So, do you see the potential for more generalized protest with the AFL-CIO and unions, as well as all kinds of nonpartisan groups getting together on this?
Thank you.
Let me just throw something in here. One thing I wanted to say is that I was not romanticizing the Reagan era, but he was a hell of a lot more compassionate towards immigrants, and that is how far we have fallen, how far we've descended into this abyss of misery. And it's pretty bad when you have to extol Reagan. I mean, I'm sorry, it's really bad. And so the only other thing is, the esteemed lady here, I don't know your name, but I agree 100% with you. My father was busted, his union got busted during that time. And I remember seeing a man who was in his 50s, who didn't complete high school, and who was devastated for the next 10 years until he got his Social Security. And I thought I was so freaking smart, right? And he predicted everything that was going to happen. He said, this is, when Patco got hit, when the air traffic controllers got hit, my father hit the nail on the head. He said, this is just the beginning. And I'm like, Dad, you're just overstating the case. And every frickin' thing he said with his high school education came to pass. And so you ask whether it's the unions, I think it's going to have to be grassroots. I don't think the unions have the force to do what they could do in the 80s. I think it's going to have to be grassroots, and it's going to have to be a general strike, because they don't give a flying F about protests anymore. They need to be hid in their pocketbook. That's my view.
So I'll just jump in there and say quickly that there are greater minds than mine. I like the term grassroots. But if you want to have a plan that we could all adhere to today, that's why I say about inviting everyone into the big tent, and to get away from the conversation of Republicans and Democrats, but finding people that understand that with the big tent, we can identify the right candidates to elect, and we're right around the corner from getting the House. And right after that, we go after the Senate. And right after that, we go after the presidency. And then right after that, we have the list of laws that we want to change immediately, Supreme Court being one of them, women's reproductive health, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, all of those things should, and that's a 4-year plan. And what that does for me is say, we need everybody in that tent right now. What's the grassroots work that we need to do to get the electorate, to get the people to get up like Sarasota did and make the change, so that when we hear Project 2025, I'm talking Project 2029, and these are the laws we're going to codify in 4 years.
We have a question here.
Hi, I'm Deb Hayes. I have to admit I'm really embarrassed that I did not know all of the implications of the driver's license issue. I just didn't know that. Obviously, it is across all the populations, but our students also would be caught in that and make them very vulnerable. Do you have a one-page sheet, a cheat sheet that we can use to talk about those issues? Because I have to be honest, I didn't know.
Are we talking about the driver's license issues or all the other issues? All of it?
Start with the driver's license.
Yeah, you know, because these are the things that don't affect us, right? I mean, we've all talked on that. If something doesn't affect you, why should you know about it? And you shouldn't feel bad about it. In a way, success is not worrying about these issues, right? However, I have a finish off to the last question, which also is to your question. There is many different ways, you know, what's that old saying? I'm really bad with cliches. You can't eat the elephant in one bite, right? Okay, I get it right? Oh, yes. Did grow up with a lot of English cliches in my household. So I think that the fight is on every front. That's just the whole thing. Many years ago, I started protesting. I don't protest anymore. I sit on boards of directors now. My goal is to affect policy from where my talents lie. For my daughter, it's protesting. For you, it's the way you live your life. I have this, what I call the rule of 10. There are 10 people that I inform and I make sure that they vote. They're not people in this room. They're not people that will come to an event like this. They're 10 people that are not interested in attending this. They're working, they're busy, they're spending time with their family. They're doing probably what they should be doing, right? What we should all be doing, that's what they're doing. My job is to take those 10 and massage them through the process. So when an issue comes up and they're about to vote, they say, well, Jim, man, but we can't be giving them our tax dollars. I said, that's not true. This is what's really happening. So I think that's, I think that every fight has, every issue has 1,000 ways to defeat it, 1,000,000 ways to defeat it. And I think what's important is that you just choose one of them and you focus in on that. I learned a long time ago, I can't change the world. I'm a different person than I was 30, 40 years ago. And I learned real quick, I cannot affect the world and I don't want to. But what I want to do is, I want to take my group, my tight group around me, and I want to make it like Johnny Appleseed. I want to be Jimmy Appleseed, right? And I just want to lay enough information so that person takes it, because I think it's education. I really do. Because it's easy to see, remember through history how it's been done. How do you take somebody, how do you take a good person and turn them on their neighbor? You make the neighbor, in Spanish we call him el cucuy. You make the neighbor the bad guy, right? You have to have an enemy, a terrorist. We do it all the time. Well, you have to remove that. And you have to learn that maybe that bad guy is not such a bad guy, right? So it's little by little and just informing them and not attacking people, you know, and just giving them the information they need and make sure they keep getting the information they need.
Okay, we got a question in the front here then.
See me?
Go ahead.
First of all, thank you so much to the three of you for scaring me to death. I have to confess that after, Jaime, Jim,
Yes.
like
Either
you,
or.
after my life in corporate America for a lot of years, I am about to be 80, only 3 jobs in corporate America, traveled 5 countries in South America, the United States, from Texas to Boston, and then after retirement, I worked with refugees in Atlanta, with Risa, one of them, for example. And I was director of development, that's educational, with Galeo, the Georgia Association of Latino Elected Officials. Given all the pain we have gone through, I have gone into my cave and did not want to get involved because of my frustration, and I'm sorry to say that, with Democrat leadership. I do not understand. First of all, let me say something. I just want to say thank you to you, but I also want to share with you in attendance my fear being Puerto Rican. puertorriqueño, in which this government and these people not too long ago called it, you know what? The bathroom where we go with all the trash. So with this, what I, in my nervousness, I want to bring out is, as a Puerto Rican citizen, served National Guard 6 years, paid my taxes, have lived the American dream in corporate America, and recently, my island, my people have been thrown paper towels, yes, and worse, to be called a floating trash island. But now, as you have said, the progressiveness of evil is moving forward. What is going to happen, that's my question, to the birthright citizenship for Puerto Rico? If, under a very well-intended president called Obama, the power, quote unquote, of our executive was given to a junta. And that was not Trump, that was Democrats. Our governor cannot make financial decisions in Puerto Rico. So, Jaime, now you know why I am scared and I did not want to come here. I made a mistake coming here because you have activated my fear and my anger.
Thank you.
Well, I'm happy. I am happy that it's activated. I am happy that your anger is activated and that your fear is activated, and I hope you take that and you activate 10 more people when you leave today.
And that's what I meant when I said to you that every single time that they did something extreme at the school board, another 1,000 people became involved. And so that's what's going on right now, and that's that's the optimism I want to share with you. The fact that you woke up, that you're engaged, that you're part of the conversation again, is what will happen. And that's why, as people wake up, we want them to come into that big tent. The other thing that I want to point out is that I'm not an expert on Puerto Rico, but I spent a lot of time there in the 80s. I used to rent an apartment. I was a young person with disposable income that could fly from LaGuardia to San Juan every weekend during the winter, and I had an apartment down there. And one of the things that I loved, I thought I was going to retire there, but there was a complacency that was built into the politics of Puerto Rico at the time that I've never seen really change. And that complacency was statehood or not statehood, statehood or not statehood, and that was generational, and it was literally 50-50, and that had been 2 or 3 generations that felt that way. And so a lot of what we should take from that conversation of complacency is that is what has happened to us. Those of us that have not been paying attention, that extremism has to wake up. We have to be more engaged civically, period, end of statement, which is also why I love being a school board member, because I can get to that.
All right.
Is it possible potential for the United States to take out through the House of Representatives, presently controlled by Republicans, the whole, really, the House of Representatives is the government of Puerto Rico, where all the control lies?
Do you want to cover the Puerto Rico question? I'll do the birthright.
To the birthright.
I sit with clients almost every single day, and they share the stories that Jimmy shared. They have businesses, they're scared to death of what's going on. And I tell them that if they take birthright citizenship away, maybe you'll want to be deported because I'm going to be right after you. I mean, it's really, and I'm not joking. I've been to Mexico twice in the last 6 months because I too am worried about it. I think this is what I call a bellwether issue, okay? Basically, I'm just going to cut to the chase. If that issue goes the president's way, the shit has hit the fan, okay? And you will have no other choice than to shut the whole frickin' country down to stop it, because that means something has gone terribly awry, and I'm not 100% sure that we'll win that issue. I'm reasonably confident because there are people on the Supreme Court that have surprised me. One of them, Amy Coney Barrett, has been quite independent. You know, I don't really care if you're a conservative or a liberal. I really don't give a flying F anymore because I'm like you. I'm really pissed at the Democrats right now. But I will tell you, please listen to what you're hearing here today, because we've had good advice on the politics, but also look at who the hell you're voting for and their darn ethics. Because it comes down to ethics. Because if they don't have the ability to stand up to the evil that is taking place, then they're no good. They're no good.
So let me finish answering the birthright question, right? Okay. So I've done the math on this one for myself. So my dad's Puerto Rican, my mom's Mexican. My dad was born in Puerto Rican, although never stepped in the United States, and my mom's Mexican. She was naturalized through being married to my father, which makes me then, so if that were to work, I would be stripped of my citizenship. So to say that, no, I don't think that's a problem. I think if it was up to Stephen Miller, no. I think if it's up to Stephen Miller and them, that's what they want, right? But will it ever happen? I don't see that happening. I don't see our Supreme Court going that odd. I can see it being a 2-7 vote, but not enough to I hope not, because then I'm done. Because I'm done too. My whole family's done. So I hope not.
Question down front.
Yes, here is the next question.
Yeah, hi. A couple things. With all due respect, Mr. Edwards, I understand your idea of the big tent and reaching out to people on the other side. But going back to our discussion about the 80s, I remember my heroes from the 80s, and that was ACT UP. And they were not, from my memory and from what I took from them, what they were doing is saying, we're here, we're queer, get used to it. And I feel like this is a moment in time where I want to go, this is it, this is wrong, get over it. Don't do it anymore. You do not pass. And I've had my tires slashed. I've been called names on my car because I have some bumper stickers. I'm not really interested in working with those people who have slashed my tires and called me names and all of that fun stuff. What I'm interested in doing is action, acting up. I would like to do something immediately to help the immigrants in our community who are full of fear. Does that mean making meal trains? Does that, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, I don't have access to people seeking help. I'm not on the school board, I don't have access to students. I want to know what I can do. Who do I befriend? Who do I go to in order to act up and say, they're going to have to go through me to get to you. And, you know, I may not be all that, but I'm a 60-year-old white lady. So, you know, that might make the news if you arrest me. I don't know. But what can I do personally to reach out specifically to this community?
So you don't mind, I wanted to follow with that. May I? So this is a great conversation here. And I wanted to invite all of you who are willing to help us, the Immigration Coalition here in Sarasota. And if you want to be a volunteer, there are a lot of jobs that you can do. So there is a sign-in sheet at the entrance, and if you want to give us your contact information, please do it. We need you. We cannot work alone. We need your support. Thank you. Next question. Oh,
Let me
you have an answer?
I just want to say, the first thing I want to say is that when I say reach to the other side, you're not going to get to a MAGA. You're not going to get to an extremist. So that is not what I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting is that there are a lot of people that are in that, where I said we're running, most of us are between both 40-yard lines. There are people that are to the right of the 50 that voted for that regime because they just voted Republican their whole life, and they're as nervous and as scared as we are. And so they need somebody to reach out to them and bring them into the conversation and let them know that that's okay. The ACT UP, by the way, was originally to get to Fauci. That's really what it was, because the drug trials for HIV, all of the research that was connected in any drug trial, and even till today, it has to go through 7 years in order for, and it has to go through testing for 7 years before it can be administered. So if you got HIV, you died in 12 months. So you didn't have 7 years. So that, the whole ACT UP was geared specifically to him, and it worked because we all got a seat at that table. So my answer back to you is, you do you. If you want to there's I promise you, I could connect you to a group that's as fired up as you are, and you can be part of that group. But I'm suggesting there's a number of different ways that we can build the coalition that's necessary to elect the kinds of candidates and elected officials that we talked about, that have that integrity, that have the ability to stand up and do the right thing.
One thought that comes to mind as well is there's a group here, Unidos Now. Get in touch with them, because you can get, I mean, you say you're a 60-year-old white lady, and you know, there are social barriers here to meeting Hispanics sometimes, right? But if you have some time on your hands, you can meet many, many parents of, you know, undocumented parents of students, and it's a great way to network. Because I believe that there, like has been said, there's a place for getting out there and doing the activism, but there's also the place where it's just very, very relational. And I'm just, you know, I swear to God that I would not hold it against anybody if they voted for Trump this time, because I've adhered to that. I've adhered to that. Doesn't mean that I agree with them, but I don't think a person is a bad person if they voted for Trump. I think they may have been misguided or they had their reasons. But as the gentleman said, you know, you're not going to get to the MAGA people. We got to get to those people in the middle.
I'm a little bit more of a knuckle dragger. I say you punch him in the face with facts, right? You have to know that yourself. It doesn't take long. I mean, we have everything I got. You can research everything. It's there. And second, we need more young people. All right. Look around this room. I think I counted when I was up there maybe 3 young people. That's embarrassing. So we have to start asking why are we not inviting the young people? We don't think enough of them. We think they're silly. But guess what? This is their world. This is their world. This is their country, right? So we're gonna have to start listening to them instead of ignoring them and think we know better than them. We have to start listening to the young people, see what they need.
We got some questions back here, and we have one over there.
I was just wondering.
I have to hold it. This is an old lady's suggestion, but if I could still drive, I'd be volunteering to drive people to work and pick them up after work. And I think that's something that could be organized.
I want to say one thing. And you could also, under this stupid administration, be charged with aiding and abetting. Yeah. And that is a form of protest. And it would be great to see, I'll use your term, okay? It'd be great to see an old lady arrested for that.
You look great. That would look good.
The optics would really suck for the administration.
Someone had to take care of my dog.
There's probably an undocumented alien who would do that.
Okay, we got a question up front.
I was just wondering if you guys have any ideas. It's like the writing is on the wall or in the executive orders or in the bills. It's like, okay, they're doing immigrants first, then they're going to start disappearing transgender people, then it's going to be the gay people, then it's going to be the people with mental illnesses, then it's going to be the brown and black people, then it's going to be the Jews and Muslims. That's it. And it's like, you know, I just watched a video the other day of them abducting a 16-year-old girl, a 2-month-old baby, and their mother, and it's like the Holocaust. I mean, like literally, the hairs on my arm just like stood up on end, and it's like and what can we do? Like literally, it's like I feel like well, we have to do something. We have to do something, but what? How can we stop this? Like literally, because the people that they are disappearing. Like, they're not going to get people back from El Salvador. They're not going to get people back from Libya. They're not coming back. It's like, so it's like every moment matters. Is there anything we can do to stop this?
Can I ask you
now?
something?
Yeah.
How many times have you called your representatives?
A lot.
Okay. How many times have your friends called the representatives?
I don't know. My friends are probably pretty good because I'm involved with C-Space, so I'm not the right person to ask.
But that's what it is. I mean, you're not going to move the world in one. I mean, this has been going on. What's happening now is a product of the 60s and 70s ideology that's affecting us now, right? And this is a large ship. We can't take that much. We can't put that much responsibility on ourselves and say, "Hey, you know, I'm Jim Delgado. I'm going to change the world now," or whatever. You're going to change the world now. But you do have to take steps. Right, as a community, that's what I keep saying is just pick 10 people that are not here, don't go with you. Those are the 10 people you're in charge of, right? And it'll spread. You're not going to change it today, but you got to keep calling them, and you got to keep voting, and you got to keep the people that are not voting to vote. That's the thing. It's the people who are not voting. There's 40. You said 63%, right? That means 47% of the people did not vote. That's a lot of people out there that you really have access to. And we have to start asking ourselves, why didn't they? You know, why did they sit on the sidelines? And we got to start fixing that.
Next question back here.
First, thanks for being here. I appreciate you. And I'm wondering, is there a big tent set up already? And I'm kind of new to this whole thing, but it feels like there's so many different groups that are trying to activate because we're all wanting to be active. And thank you. And I'm just seeing my friend from C Alliance and realizing there are some really powerful young people that I'm happy to be involved with. And yet I feel frustrated because I feel torn that there are so many things I want to do, but I don't know if there is a group that's overall planning all these things so we can eventually all come together, or if we're so split up that we aren't going to know where the tent is once we get ourselves activated or whatever. Thank you.
That's a Maria question. Was that a question? That was a Maria question or a Juan Pablo question.
Juan Pablo, do you want to answer that question?
Sorry.
Thank you very much. The coalition is building that, and it is a process that is just started, and it requires everyone's help. We don't have yet the answers. We just have the will to keep ourselves organized, going to the meetings, talking about the issues, and doing the things we can do, like this event. This was created with the same mindset. So I am sure that either this coalition or another group around there is there for you to work with them as you are doing with C, and other people is doing it. We wish we had the answer, and it was as easy as to say, stop them here or stop them there. We don't yet know, and we're learning as we go, but what we do know is that building the coalition, bringing people in, educating people, informing people, is what's starting to change the wave. That's what we're doing now. I'm sure that we'll eventually learn more and understand more ways of doing it. But right now, the best thing is get in contact, get connected, keep yourself active, and let's open our minds, be creative. We are all creative people. Look around, there is lots of color, lots of forms, all different kinds of people. I'm pretty sure that one of us will come up with that brilliant idea. We may not have it yet, but we're going to stick together until we find out where that idea is.
I have a question for the audience really quickly. How many people here could positively say that every friend and family member that you know knows that the President of the United States has defied the Supreme Court? Can you raise your hand if every single person in your sphere knows that?
I don't know.
You see what I'm saying? And that is a huge issue. It's huge. And not every one of us could say that every single person that we know knows that. And that's my point. We have to do our personal best to get that information across and how serious that is to the preservation of our country.
I just want to make a comment about your question about a coalition. So prior to this last election, there were about 9 organizations, pro-democracy organizations in Sarasota, that were having conversations about how do we begin to coordinate our efforts together. Because we're all trying to do the same thing, we don't all have the same resources, we would be more effective if we shared resources across this thing. Following the election, people were so devastated that a lot of these organizations kind of just stopped and people were kind of traumatized by what happened. There is much more conversation right now about these organizations like the Penn School Group, the Fogartyville, other organizations coming together with some leadership to begin some discussions about a pro-democracy coordinating organization. The first thing these organizations need to do is to get to know each other. The second is start sharing information about what they're doing. And then as those kind of coalitions evolve, they become something that starts to plan together. And that's what we need to see happening in Sarasota and the broader community. So just stay tuned. I think that's going to happen.
A comment on the last question. I'm going to say that something's been left out. Yes, there are many wonderful allied organizations doing a myriad of wonderful things, but I'm going to tell you there is a big tent, and it's called the Democratic Party. And we try to work one-to-one within everybody's neighborhood, everybody's precinct. We need precinct people. We need volunteers to do one-to-one outreach. We need a million things. Hey, maybe people think the Democratic Party is not interesting anymore. Maybe you want to criticize it. But there are 2 choices on the menu. One is meatloaf, and the other is a steaming pile of shit. Which one do you want?
So I am going to take 2 more questions because the time is 4 o'clock and we have refreshments. We have wonderful sweets in the back. So we want that people enjoy those sweets. So 2 more questions. Is that okay with you, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Okay. One question here.
Hi there. Mine is a comment, not a question. Are you all familiar with the app called 5 Calls? I have been obnoxious with my friends about this. I called during the town hall this morning when Tom and others were speaking. I called Buchanan and Stubbe and I told them, among other things, I was ashamed of them and I thought their mother would be ashamed of them. So you can, but this has so much information and you just click on it. It takes you to the phone number. It takes the phone call for you or makes the phone call for you. So simple.
It's called 5 Calls and it's a free app that you can download to your phone. And it has a variety of issues that you can, and the script is written for you, and it gives you the phone number, so it can't be easier.
I have a comment, the prior question about the Democratic Party. I think it's important that you guys know that, but the issue of immigration is not important at all to the documented Hispanic. Okay, I don't know if you guys know that. You people care more now than this issue than the documented Latino does right now. Yeah. That's very important. And that's kind of like the problem. Because what they want to know is, how can I put money in my pocket? We keep talking down to them like if the only thing they care about is immigration. No, I care about immigration because I'm a citizen and because I don't. But that's not the norm. What they want, they don't want to talk about trans. They don't want to talk about gay issues. They don't want to talk about anything. What they want to talk about is how I keep more money in my pocket and how to keep going to work. Because they always think that person they're going to deport is not me. They still don't think of themselves as that. So when we want to talk about the Latino community, we have to stop showing up every 2 years or right before the election. We have to stop that. What we have to stop doing is treating them like they're imbeciles and they don't understand English. We have to stop that. And we have to realize that the one that's voting cares what you care about. And they care about how much money can I keep? How am I going to pay for school for my kids? How's my car going to run? They think just like we're all the same. We're all us. They're not them, they're us. That's the whole point. But we still trying to talk about immigration to them. They're like, look, man, move along. And if you only come in their neighborhood every 2 years, 4 years, you're going to lose them. Because I tell you right now, the Republicans on the radio are in their ears, in their head, every single day, 365, all year round, and they found out. You want to know why Miami churned? Go listen to the Latino radio, all right? Because all they're getting is that Republican Party. We have no investment in the Latino community, and we wonder why they're not voting for us.
So one last question, and after the last question, we have two ushers going around. Any donation is welcome. We had a lot of expenses, and we wanted to support some people who are looking for legal services, so we are planning to support them financially. So the last question is here.
Hi, I'm Nona, and I'm chair of the refugee ministry at St. Ormond's Key and also connected with Concordia Lutheran. And we have been working with Lutheran Services of Florida for the last since 2019. And what we do is we get a name of the refugee coming in and we collect donations all over the country, or rather our area, Bradenton, all the way down to Venice, and get furniture and all the household stuff and everything for the kitchen, a total house. And we take all of that and put it in their new apartments or their houses so that they can live, and they don't have the money to pay for that. And also when Trump changed and stopped the planes, we had 5 families on their way to Sarasota, and they were stopped and turned back. And the families that had come since December and January, he stopped the money. So they had no money to pay for rent. They did not have their employment cards. They did not have their Social Security cards because it takes 3 to 4 months here in Sarasota to get that. So our committee raised $16,000 to pay for all the rents, and we kept them all in their houses until they got their cards and they worked. So I'm a very practical person. And I hear that there are cities that have phone numbers worked up so that when ICE goes to a house and tries to take people, they call a group, and within 30 minutes, 50 to 100 people show up. And then they have the ACLU lawyers on tap that they call so that they can now quickly file injunctions and stop this. I'm looking for practical stuff. I want to know how we do this and how we stop what's happening. So I'm hoping that somebody has numbers like that, somebody knows how to get a group together like that and how we can do this.
Thank you.
Dale?
Yeah, so this has been a wonderful session. Maria wants to remind you that there is refreshments right across at the Reeve Room as you go out the door there. It's the first room on the left, and they have some refreshments and an opportunity for people to continue this conversation. Let's give our speakers a final applause.
Nice meeting you, Tom. Same here.
Always great job, guys.
I love you, man. I think you're so smart. I just love hearing you talk. I don't care what you say. I drag you into these things all the time, and I apologize.
You help me because I'm just sitting in my office.
How are you?
You are all